Hello, Sharif here, and welcome to our fourth of our five episodes as preludes to our activities on Saturday. Um, I always make the assumption that everybody knows me, so yeah, I'm Sharif. And if you don't know me, then there's lots of ways of finding out who I am. I want to say a couple of things. I'm going to launch into what we're going to do today because it's a lot of condensed information. I don't know who is in our audience today, but I think that most of you have encountered, many of you have encountered some of the materials I'm going to present to you, but not all. And all of it has to do with the nature of the society we are creating right now. What is the nature of the society we want to create? What is the nature of the society that we want to live in? Before we get into that, those of you who have been with us for our either daily or our weekly Catalyst meditation, for the second time, for the second time in 2 weeks, the recording didn't work. I don't know what's going on. It's a technical issue. Um, I'm pushing the right button. I know I'm pushing the right button because when I look at the transcript, the first thing on the transcript says um, meeting recorded. Um, this is to let everybody know that there's a recording going on. So I know it's been being recorded, but it's not showing up. Um, I I will act like I'm not completely disturbed about that. The second piece of information before we get launched here is for some reason, we've got a really small group for our Zoom workshop on Saturday, practicing the next society. It could be that lots of people are planning on going out in the streets and practicing the old society, practicing the toxic society, practicing what will not work for us, practicing what will raise our anger levels, our frustration levels, practicing all the stuff that breaker society feeds on. Um, I won't be doing that. I'm inviting you to not do that. I'm inviting you to um, register. We got a bunch of people registered uh, for the Zoom call. You can't get on it without being registered. Um, uh, the registration buttons are lots of different places. Find one and click on it, sign up, and we can get going. Some of you want to wait until the last minute to sign up. I'm the guy that's got to let you in and give you the links and stuff like that. I'm not doing that at the last minute. We've had the buttons up for registration for at least 3 or 4 weeks. You got plenty of time to do it. You got plenty of time between now and tomorrow to do it. Um, and there's always someone who'll come forward and say, "Oh yeah, but my hair was wet, or my cow died, or some other excuse of why they should be let in." And um, you can look at the recording, if any. Remember what I started with, the Zoom recording for Thursday. Well, this is the Zoom recording for this morning did not work. I'm going to do a build around. I think I can do that. I think I'm going to create an audio only file for that. I'm trying to dress it up enough so that it sounds okay. But It's taking a while to come out, and in the meantime, you don't have anything if you're not live. So thanks to the live people right here, live on whatever service you've got. And that reminds me, I need to turn this on and recognize that it's not coming on, and I'm not going to worry about it right now. This gives me an opportunity to see what everybody else is seeing, and I'm getting that right now, and I don't want to look at myself, so I hid that from that screen. And I think that's it for that piece of paper. So let's go ahead and get started thinking about how we create a world that works for all living beings. Or on the other hand, how do we create a world that works for few to none? Now, on that world, we've got lots of experience with. We've known for thousands and thousands of years how to create a world that works for the elites, that works for the militarily powerful, that works for whoever can, force their way into governance, force their way into power. We need to do it the other way. And you can't do that. You can't do it another way, hoping for the best. You can't do it another way just saying, oh, gee, I feel really good, and all the people around me feel really good. And we like sitting around and meditating together, and we will form the next society. That won't work. Now, this is one of those things where if you think it will work and you try it out and it doesn't work, you don't get another Titanic to go get into when the one that you're sinking goes all the way down. You don't have to wait for it to go all the way down for you to know that it will. And so our challenge is, can we pay attention to what's happening right now? So I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff to pay attention to. And the first thing is, what's it take to make a new society? What are the elements of a new society? And this is something that is was developed by Commonweay, my organization, in conjunction with Dr. A.T. Ariyaratne and Sarvodaya, and also I should say Dr. Vinya Ariyaratne and Sarvodaya. And we worked out a way of looking at the world from a current and non-Western, non-breaker perspective. If I keep introducing it, I won't have any time to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get started with it. First thing we're going to start with, though, is some research done by a researcher named William Catton some years ago. I don't know if it's up to date or not, but all of the trends are pointing in a particular direction, and that's a direction we need to change, and change very significantly. And the research is, and I need to get this on the screen. So his research is, how many humans can the Earth sustainably support? And he looked at this in terms of how many BTUs does a human being consume, and how do you parcel those out? How do you do that sustainably? And he asked this for 3 different groups, because it depends how many humans the Earth can support. It depends on who you're talking about. the average indigenous person, the average European, and the average American. Okay, so this is what his research shows. If you are consuming like an indigenous person who consumes roughly 2,500 calories of energy a day, most of that in food, your size, the size of you on this planet is about the same size as a dolphin. At that rate, the Earth will support billions and billions of humans. It's not even a meaningful number for us. Let's say it's 50 billion or 75 billion, a lot more than we got right now. So these folks are putting on almost no load on our planet right now. They're not straining our planet. Okay, so let's look at the second group. Second group is how many humans can the Earth sustainably support if you're living like the average European? A European consumes about 10 times more energy than an indigenous person, most of it based in fossil fuels. So the average European is about the size of a pilot whale. So they look like they're 5 or 6 feet tall and you're kind of walking down the street. But imagine they're holding a line to a balloon, and that balloon is attached to the string is attached to a balloon, and the balloon is the size of a pilot whale, 12, 15 feet long. That's their real size. That's the size they are on the planet. And at that rate, the average European, the Earth will support about 11 billion humans. At the time I did these slides, that was like twice the humans, the Earth's current population. Now that we're knocking on the door of 9 billion, that's pretty significant. But the Earth at that rate can support billions of humans more, billions more than we've got right now. Now, if you've been to Europe, you know that the average European does not live a shabby life. A lot of the energy that goes into our society in terms of creating industrialized food that doesn't grow out of the ground, but food that you've got to do things with. You've got to press it, you've got to slice it and dice it and all this other stuff. People do them themselves. They do it the old-fashioned way. It's called cooking. In Europe, this is called a car. In Europe, this is called transportation. And so living our lives means that at that level means that you have another few billions of humans to go and still live sustainably. Okay, let's get to the real prize, though. What would happen? How many people will the Earth support as the average American? And by average American, I'm talking about you and me. I'm not talking about the folks of excess that ride around in their own private jets and things like that. I'm talking about average people. Well, the average American consumes 6 times the European rate. Each American is as large as a blue whale, the largest creature on Earth. At that rate, the entire Earth will not support all Americans. At the rate of the average American, the entire contents of the Earth will not sustainably support all Americans. That's because we think this is transportation. We think that this is a car. We think that this is a house. and we think that this is food. Now, I want you to recognize that this kid who's sitting there, as morbidly obese as he is, wasn't born that way. He got that way. And he got that way because he's doing something right now that it should sadden us. Right now, he is trying to derive nutrition from the calories he's consuming. There is no nutrition in there. And we recognize that because we allow this kind of food to be sold, these substances to be sold, because we allow it, we shouldn't even allow this to happen. But because we allow it, we are also responsible for this happening. We have to do things differently. And until we do these things differently, we're not going to be we are not living up to our responsibility to ourselves. We're not living up to our responsibility to the earth. We can't live like this. We know we can't live like this, and we keep living like this. So what I'm going to talk to you about right now is, how do we get away from this? How do we get beyond this? Oh, before I do that, this is based on a workshop. And when I'm doing a workshop, I have you live in front of me. And I will, I do a lot of like what I'm doing right now, blah, 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 blah. But I also do a lot of questions and have you grapple with these questions, because a lot of times you're sitting there and you're listening now and you're paying attention, etc. But when you are sitting down face to face with somebody else and you're trying to explain to them your view on X or Y or Z, you see things differently. And my questions are designed for you to see things differently. Now, we can't do that today. I don't have, I'm facing some of the limitations of StreamYard that's allowing me to stream this across multiple channels. But let me at least ask you the question so you can be thinking about that. We may have time in the more informal part of this presentation for us to talk about this. And I see a number of people are on the call, and I need to check YouTube and my other sources here. But I'm not seeing any questions or any comments in the chat areas. It may be that you're chatting through Facebook or chatting through LinkedIn, and I'm not guaranteed to get those feeds. I think I can get the YouTube feed. But even if you're writing this for yourself, get yourself engaged in the question. So I'm going to ask you a question right now. And the question is, where's my question? Jenna just asked a question, and I'm trying to figure out why. Okay, I see why. There we go. Jenna just asked a question, and let me get her question, and then we will. She asked, what level of human population can the Earth support at the American level? The number that Catton came up with is somewhere around 200 million people the Earth can support at the American level, um, which is about 2/3 of our population. Now, what happens to the other third? And then what happens to the other 90% of humanity? And not even talking about all of the other beings who are sacrificing so that we can live at absurd levels of materialism. So our challenge is, how do we get this? How do we do this more rationally? Um, so I have here's an exercise that we would do um, live if we were live. Um, what has to change in your life, like the life that you're living, not like the life that Donald Trump or Elon Musk is living? What has to change in your life to bring it to the level of the average European? I can answer that question for myself. I would give up my car, and you know, Portland is a public transportation friendly city. We could do that. Um, I could eat out less, and this is when the tears start rolling down my cheeks here. I could eat with friends more. When you have more people in a meal, the processing of the meal takes less time, etc. I could spend more time, let's say, purposefully walking. And by that, I mean um, not walking on a treadmill, but walking to get somewhere. But it wouldn't take a whole lot. I'm not an extravagant person. I try to walk my talk, and if we're talking about creating um, an ecologically sane society, then I'm trying to live that right now. Second question: how will the life of the average person living in Africa or Asia change if I bring my life down to the level of the average European? Well, what happens in their lives is that their lives go up, okay, where they get, for example, better access to uh, clean water, good food, good health care, good basic health care, etc. So that becomes our reality. So I'm going to shift our gears for a second here and talk about, what does it take to make up a society? What are the elements of a society? Well, um, you need good military, and therefore you need good military parades, and you need to have lots of people aimed at getting us to Mars. And uh, okay, none of those things, none of the things I just said, are necessary for a society, including the military. There's societies on the planet right now that don't have them. They're really expensive, and we like all our neighbors, so we don't have any. Um, so this is something that I sat down with Dr. A.T. Aryaratne, Dr. Vinya Aryaratne, and we worked out what we call the three circles analysis. This is a way of analyzing society that looks at a lot of things. And if I keep talking about introducing it, we don't get to it. So let me get to it right now. So this is what happens. There are three principal factors that make up a society: consciousness, economics, and power. What do we mean by this? So consciousness is the key element of a society. It's one we don't talk about, but when you have a society run by people with a different consciousness, it becomes very, very clear to you. So let's look at the consciousness in society. What we mean by that is how we think about ourselves, our inner lives, our spiritual being, how we actually interact with other people. No, I'm sorry, other beings, other human beings, and also other non-human beings. Economics is how we maintain our physical existence and satisfy our basic needs. How do you get food? How do you get energy? How do you get water? And power is how we govern our own behavior, how we govern others' behaviors for the common good. We call that politics, but I'm trying to call it governance because politics has such a dirty connotation to it, and a well-deserved dirty connotation to it. And we need to think about that differently. Okay. So let's take a quick look at what a dysfunctional society looks like. In a dysfunctional society, in the consciousness realm, there's spiritual decadence, moral decay, and ignorance. And all of you know by now, I hope, that when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about religious. I'm not talking about people aren't going to Sunday school anymore. I don't care if you never walk into a church or a masjid or a kovil or a temple, or I don't care if you play golf all Sunday or Saturday or Friday. But you can have a spiritual decline, even spending all your time inside of your churches, etc., if there's not a moral foundation for your behavior. There's us versus them thinking that supports racism, bigotry, and hatred. There's a consciousness of pain and lack leading to suffering, anger, and violence. How many people focus on their own suffering to the point that they think that's the only thing that is happening in the world? And the most important thing, it's not going to go backwards, so I'm going to keep going forwards. The most important thing in consciousness is that there's no future. This leads to people especially young people, to being depressed and feeling despair and suicidal. In economics, the poverty creates an atmosphere of depression and despair. The gap between the rich and the poor leads to greed and envy, and you see it all the time, and you see it on all of your screens. All these people with all this money, and you know you don't have it. And there's a promotion of non-sustainable lifestyles, as though non-sustainability is a good thing. Okay. In the power realm, power is in the hands of elites. And I don't care what kind of society you're in. I don't care how high or low it is. If you look at the government, you're looking at people who are in the upper echelon of society. Ordinary people have little power to change their lives. One of the things that we know that many people in the current government don't know is that a lot of the colleges and universities bring people from other countries into the United States to teach them, because they know they're going to go back home and they're going to lead their country to act like us. When we tell the students to all go home, they do, and they go to other countries, and the other country gets to help shape and mold the young people of that society. And so in the power realm, violence is the tool that you use to gain or keep power. And when you see the kind of violence that we've been seeing in Los Angeles, you get to see that we say we live in a democratic society, but the ultimate tool of this society is violence. Okay, so that's what a dysfunctional society looks like. What does a functional society look like? What does a healthy society look like? Well, there's a spiritual awakening. People act like they're waking up. They act like they are healthy people, and they act like they're going into being healthy people. There's a sense that things are moving up. Okay. We are one thinking leads to inclusivity. There's a consciousness of mutual service leading to compassion. And there's a clear vision, a clear path to a positive future for all that leads to a sense of belonging. Not a positive future for all on Mars, but a positive future for all right here. In economics, and I'm trying to position myself so that this is the time of day when the sun is coming through my windows here. In economics, we live in a society where all basic needs are met. That's not hard. In fact, it's relatively easy when you take all the things that are stupid in our society out. How many different bombers do we need? It's a whole lot easier to make friends with these potential enemies than it is to guard yourself against them. The sense of enoughness closes the gap between the rich and the poor. And there's a promotion of sustainable lifestyles, showing people every day how sustainability is good for the planet, good for you personally, and good for our future. In the power realm, people have power over their lives and their destiny. And democratic power is at the most local level. We spent a lot of time in Sri Lanka talking about what that means. Thomas Jefferson, at the end of his life, spent almost all of his time looking at how you get democratic power away from the elites, even though he was an elite of a multiple elite. But how do you get power away from the elites and down at the most local levels? And a healthy society, violence is not a tool to gain or manipulate power. Okay, so if that's what a healthy society looks like, our challenge is how do we get there? I noticed something. Our time right now is we're at the point where I should be talking about the an informal discussion or a less formal. But this is I'm going to go this route another 5 or 10 minutes or so. I'd like to go ahead and finish. I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions. I'm not seeing questions in the chat. For Facebook, I'm not seeing questions that are in the chat for YouTube. I'm not seeing questions on the live stream feed here. So I'm going to keep going. there's more to this. Let me go through at least one more iteration of the three circles analysis. So most of us, regardless of the fact that you go to, a really cool conference, or you go to a really you have a prayer meeting, or you do a deep meditation with others, but you come out of there and you live a life, and you live a life and jumping in a car and going out to eat and going to a job that you either tolerate or sometimes not tolerate. But you go through all these steps and you don't have a sense of living in a society that's actually going to work. So you protest this piece over here, you protest that piece over there, you try to vote for this one who will do a little bit better, who won't be as much of a jerk as the other one was over there. And it doesn't matter to me which direction your jerk dial points. What matters to me is, how do we get to a point where all of us are pointing in a visionary direction? But that's not where we're pointing right now. Where we're pointing, most of us are creating and strengthening the consciousness of fear, the economics of fear, greed, and poverty, and the leadership of the elite. Most of us are just trying to change to a different elite, as opposed to changing to a group that is committed to creating a world that works for all living beings. When we look at the political actions that will be taken on Saturday, how much of it's feeding into one of these three circles? How much of it is going to generate fear and anger? How much of this is going to generate the kinds of almost an anti-elite? We're going to be different from those people over there, when in the bottom line, our tactics are the same. The tactics of fear generation, the tactics of anger generating, that people don't want to open up love and compassion in our hearts. They want to manage your fear. And at that point, we need to do things differently. Okay. So, and let me get another comment from Jenna. And as long as Jenna is writing it, I'm going to be reading it. Her first comment was, what will it take for societies to change? And how much time do humans have to accomplish this? I have a definite answer for that. And you're not going to like it. When I wrote my first book, The Power of One, let's see if I have a copy I can wave around here. When I wrote this, I put a in the afterword. It would take roughly 20 years for us to change to a new way of doing things. That's if folks rolled up their sleeves and said, let's do this. Let's live in a different society. Um, there was a guy who was running for president, John Anderson, I think his name was, and he had a lot of interesting ideas, but one of them I thought was really innovative. Gasoline at the time was somewhere around between 75 cents and $1 a gallon. And so it went up toward $1 a gallon. Oh my God, $1 a gallon for gasoline. Um, he said, raise the gasoline tax to $5 a gallon right now. We're going to create a lot of suffering, a lot of disruption, but take all of that money, every single bit of it, and invest it in public transportation. Now, if we had done that, we would be living in a society with one of the best public transportation systems in our society, in the world, and we would be putting fewer carbon emissions into the atmosphere. We would be healthier, we'd be happier, and we didn't do it. We did not vote for that guy. We keep wanting to point to the elites are doing this, and the banksters are doing that, and the capitalists are doing this, and it just keeps pointing away from us, away from our ability to make the change. It points away from our consciousness, and we have to be the ones that are conscious. Jenna also said, fast change typically requires a dictator not working collaboratively. This is what this is all about. You should vote for me to become your dictator, and I'll punish all the people I don't like, and that's going to create a perfect society for everybody, and vote for me. And for those of you who know me, you know that's my weird sense of humor coming out once in a while. Fast change typically requires a dictator. Jenna, you're right. But that's not revolution. It's not revolutionary change, and it's not changing consciousness. I've been to communist countries. I've been to places where there was a powerful change in society, and it works better. It works better than here, and still doesn't work good enough. It still hasn't changed things so fundamentally that we get the kind of change that I'm talking about. What is it going to take? It's going to take the earth shaking. The way that my keeper friends, my native friends around the world are talking about. They said, we had our chance to do this without going through the difficulty of the earth literally throwing off this consciousness. We didn't do it. You're not doing it right now. Think about this. Why is there not 1,000 people trying to get into this workshop on Saturday? Why don't I have the problem? Why don't we have the problem that there are too many people trying to come into the workshop right now? It's crashing our systems. Everything, we are this. These are the kinds of problems that you want, and the answer to that, why that doesn't work, I told you about the other day. Remember that movie, Deep Impact? People knew the comet was coming. They knew it for 18 months. They wait for the day before it lands and start screaming their heads off, throwing stuff into their cars, and getting all and creating gridlock on the highway, and all of them die. And they're not dying because of the comet. Comet has very little to do with it. They're dying from their story. They're dying from the story they tell themselves. And there's this implicit story that's inside of ourselves that, number one, bad things can't happen to me. I can smoke cigarettes and nothing happens to me. I can eat bad food and nothing happens to me. I can use drugs of any kind and nothing happens to me. Or if it's happening to lots and lots of people, it still won't happen to me. I don't believe that it will happen to this one right here. And this is a fundamental flaw in how we see ourselves in the context of society. I'll tell you a story, then I'm going to get one more of the 3 circle slides in, and we're going to call it a night. This happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago in this neighborhood. I was going to my post office box and I saw a police confrontation in the middle of the street. Police cars had stopped a vehicle, and all of them had guns drawn, and all of them were trying the vehicle had stopped, but they're trying to get the occupants out of the vehicle without an incident. There's a crowd of like maybe 100 people surrounding all of this. All the cops were facing in one direction, and they were saying with bullhorns, the people who are standing in front of the bank, you are in our line of fire, move away quickly. The people who are standing in front of the bank, so they're about 100, I'm standing behind the police, okay? The people who were standing in front of the bank, where the police guns were trained, they literally would look at each other and they would move about 4 or 5 feet over. And the cops would say, you are still in the line of fire. If we have to shoot, you are going to get hit. You should move all the way over 200 feet in this direction or in that direction. And again, they would look at each other like, is he talking to us? He can't be talking to us. We're nice people. Bad things don't happen to us. We don't have to, So they shuffled over a couple more feet, and this dialogue went on. I got tired of. They were bringing these suspects out one by one with their hands up. It took a while to get them to. It was no longer interesting to me. So, but I went around the block. I went around away from the bank. I knew I know what happens when police fire starts and everybody starts like, why is this happening to me? It's like it's happening to you because they said it was going to happen to you and you didn't believe them. You said that the comet was coming. This is in the movie. Comet's coming, comet's coming, comet's coming. Wait till the last 10 hours and then run around like a chicken with your head cut off. We are trying to be more conscious about this. We are trying to be more focused about this. This focus is, I think, really, really important. So let me go through the last of these slides. So this is how you get to a world that works for all. That you get there with inclusive consciousness. Now, that's the language that I was using when I was working with Sarvodia, and we were looking at the creation of these three circles. Inclusive consciousness is fine. I'd probably use the term holonic consciousness now because I think it conveys more more meaning. We would have relational economics, the economics where we are all acting like we are related to each other. And we would have transformational governance. So what inclusive consciousness means? Inclusive universal principles and values that are distilled from all major wisdom traditions. We're not trying to create a Christian society. We're not trying to create a Muslim society or a Buddhist society or an Avenger society, or we're looking at all of our universal values, all of our universal principles, and bring them all together. We would practice our values, not just talk about them. In relational economics, we would need a new economic theory. How many times am I hearing neo-capitalism, neo-socialism, neo-communism, neo-anarchy? It's like you're saying neo because you recognize that all of these systems have failed. And you're trying to find something that hasn't failed. We are really, really smart. We're smart enough to figure out a brand new system. We're smart enough to figure out a brand new system that does not rely on the failures of the old systems. We can call it relationalism. You can call anything else you want. You can call it Fred for all I care. But we can do something new. The folks of the past, Hobbes and Locke and Jefferson and Washington and Franklin, that's called the past. The dead white guy should not be dominating us living people right now, us living beings right now, who are holding a completely different way of looking at the world. And relational economics means economics has a relationship between living beings. It's not a power over, it's not a dominance society. We're doing this together. The purpose of the society is the creation of a no poverty, no extravagant society. This is something that Dr. Arya-Ratne was adamant about, that we don't have to have poverty. But the way you get rid of poverty is by getting rid of, but the way you get rid of having too little is to get rid of the notion of having too much. That money is less important than relationship. That we need to, that whatever the mechanisms are that create greed and corruption and waste, we need to get rid of them. This means that we have to get rid of corporations. It's pretty easy to do, but we have to actually want to do that as opposed to supporting them. Let me talk a little faster here. So transformational governance means the politics of the whole. No one, I should say, few of us are holding that position. Each of us, we've created this artificial dividing line in our society that divides things in two. Why not three? Why not five? It's ludicrous to say that the whole society divides into left and right. Um, so who is it that holds the politics of the whole? Who can hold an inclusive view of politics? Well, I come from the background of the left, but I've come from it. That is not my stance right now. My stance right now is above all that and really into looking at how can our governance structure work for all. The creation of, at the time, I called it emergent democracy, leaderless distributed networks of political relationships. That one mouthful there is an hour-long presentation. It is something that is really, really powerful, doable right now, which is why we don't want to talk about it, because we want to keep talking about people joining up to a system that doesn't work. What we call do-it-yourself governance, the Grama Swaraj is a term that means the sovereignty of the village, the lowest possible level in a society. And I wish I had the time to talk about it, but I don't have the time to talk about it now. If there's interest, there's lots of interest in looking at this in places like Sri Lanka and India, etc. But we are too caught up in our trivia for us to look at how do we create a whole new governance structure. And sortition being part of that. What is sortition? It's the way we get out of most of our political mess, and most of us don't want to hear about this. This is the thing that Thomas Jefferson was working on up until the time of his death. How do you have a democracy where you don't vote? And if you know that voting can be hijacked, if you know that corporations can just buy out your politicians and buy out your governance, why do it that way? Do it another way. And the other way is with sortition. I'm going to try to do this inside 30 seconds. Sortition is you can fill up you're trying to fill up your governing body with representatives of whoever the people are. And so you have people say, I can represent you, and then you have an election, and the people with who are the best qualified or the worst qualified with the biggest mouths get elected. You got the system you got right now. What Jefferson was suggesting is do a legislature the same way you do a grand jury. No one runs to get on a grand jury. Most of the time, you're trying to run away from it. You see, in a sortition system, you assume that everybody has a civic duty to participate in the running of their society. And you just go to the voter registration list and say, you're going to be our government, and you're going to serve for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, we'll say thank you very much, and then we're going to go some different people, and then they're going to run the government. You can't buy that system out because it changes so often. It is uh, you don't derive any benefit from being in that office. You're not there so long that people come to you to say, I want this favor, I want that favor, I want to do these things or those things. We were trying to implement that in Sri Lanka, and I was working on it as a way of modeling doing this somewhere else, like here. And all of a sudden, the war got hot again. And I think the reason the war got hot is that there were some vested interests around the world that said, we don't want that experiment happening in that society. We don't want to see what happens when people have an alternative to their existing situation. Folks, I feel like I ran a race. I feel like I won, but yay, but I'm tired now. I want you to see something. We're just literally scratching the surface of the things that we developed with Sarvodia in Sri Lanka, with SEAP in Brazil, with the organizations in South Africa, the organizations in New Zealand, the folks that I've been working with in Russia. We've got all these really, really cool people around the world that want to do something. I've been tempted to just pick up stakes and go over there, wherever there is, just go in another direction, so that we can get something started. There's nothing stopping us from getting things started right here, right now. I made a commitment to doing this right here and right now, but I'm also thinking that when the tilt in the Titanic gets to the point where it becomes completely non-functional, I'm not going to wait for it to go under in order for us to get this idea in the world. The idea that we can create a society that works for all. The idea that we can start working on this. I wish us well. I'm looking forward to doing doing some work at this time of day when I'm not ducking around from sunbeams here. I'm glad we've got sun. We have our last of our episodes of this looking at the path, the power, and the practice. At this rate and with this number of people, we won't be continuing it into next week. We will work on something else to get us to the place where people are paying attention. In the meantime, may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. I'm going to end the stream today to right now. And if you have not signed up yet for the workshop, the Zoom workshop, free, but you must register for Saturday, please do so tomorrow. Talk to you later. Bye.